The slave market on planet Varnock 7 was a dark and terrible place. Aliens from many worlds were locked in cages, their eyes full of fear and pain. The air was heavy with smoke, and the sounds of screaming filled the skies. This was not a place for mercy, it was a place to buy suffering. Alira, a young alien girl with soft green skin and glowing blue eyes, sat quietly inside her cage. Her hands were tied, and her heart was racing. She had heard the guards talking. Today was the auction, and today she would be sold. Since she was a child, Alira had lived in chains. She had never known freedom, only orders and pain. The other slaves had told her stories about humans, terrible stories. They said humans bought slaves to torture them, or worse, they were monsters, cruel and heartless. A loud bell rang across the market, and the crowd began to gather. The auction was starting, and the buyers took their seats. Rich aliens in strange robes, creatures with no faces, beings made of fire, all ready to buy. Alira's cage opened, and a guard dragged her to the center stage. She fell to her knees as the auctioneer raised his voice, strong body, young age, good for work or other things. He shouted, the crowd laughed, and the bidding began. Alira looked down, tears in her eyes, ready for her nightmare to get worse. But then, someone strange appeared. A human, tall and middle-aged, stepped forward from the shadows. His clothes were plain, his face calm, his eyes tired but kind. He said nothing as he looked at Alira, and she felt confused. This was not what she expected. The auctioneer paused for a moment, surprised. "Ah, a human bidder," he said, then smiled. "You know the rules, human, no refunds." The man nodded once and raised his hand, offering a large amount. The other bidders looked at him, then backed away. No one outbid him, and the auctioneer slammed the hammer down. "Sold!" he shouted, to the human. Alira's heart sank. It was true then. Humans really did buy slaves. She was led down the steps, chains still on her wrists. The man waited near a small ship, and when she reached him, she whispered, "Will it hurt?" He looked at her, silent for a moment. His eyes were not cruel, just sad. "No," he said softly. "Come with me." She followed him into the ship, her steps slow and unsure. The door closed behind them with a hiss, and for a second, Alira thought she had walked into a trap, but what she saw inside confused her even more. There were no cages, no weapons, no torture tools. Just a clean room, a warm seat, and soft lights. The man walked over to a small cabinet and took out a bottle of water and some food. He placed it in front of her and said, "You're safe now." Alira stared at him, then at the food. She didn't move, her mind racing with questions. Why wasn't he hurting her? Why wasn't she locked up? He walked away, sat at the control panel, and started the ship. As it flew into the stars, she sat quietly in the corner. Watching him, she didn't eat, didn't drink, just waited. She still thought it was a trick. Hours passed, and finally, the ship landed on a small, peaceful moon. He opened the door and looked at her. "You can go," he said. "You're free." Alira blinked, not understanding. "What?" she asked, her voice shaking. "You're not a slave anymore," he said. "You never should have been." She stood up slowly, walking toward the open door. The cool air touched her face, and for the first time, she smelled freedom. But she didn't step outside. She turned back to him and said, "Why? Why would you do this?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at the stars and whispered, "Because someone once saved me too." Alira didn't know what to say. Her whole life had been fear and chains, and now someone had just let her go. She stepped outside for a moment, breathing deeply, but then she looked back, her heart pulling her toward the only person who had ever shown her kindness. She took one step back inside the ship, to be continued. Asterisk, she stood in the doorway of the ship, caught between two worlds. Behind her, the open land of the quiet moon, a place unknown. In front of her, the strange human who had just set her free. For the first time in her life, Alira had a choice, but could she trust it? The door hissed shut behind her, and the ship's engines powered down. John, the human, walked past her calmly, as if what he had done was nothing special. He didn't chain her, didn't ask her to stay. He simply opened a drawer, pulled out a blanket, and placed it on the small couch. "If you want a rest, this is yours," he said. Then walked into another room. Alira didn't move for a long time. She sat by the wall, eyes wide, watching the soft lights of the ship flicker. Every second, her mind whispered warnings. It's a trap. It's a lie. He's waiting to hurt you. She had seen too much darkness in her short life to believe in kindness. Her eyes moved around the ship, searching for hidden cameras or weapons. But everything looked clean, simple, and peaceful. No chains, no locks, no guards. Just quiet. She finally stood up, moving slowly, her bare feet silent on the floor. She walked to the food he had left earlier, her stomach growling. It smelled real, warm, and fresh. She picked up a piece, sniffed it, and took a tiny bite. Nothing happened. No pain, no trick. She ate it all in seconds, then drank the water with both hands shaking. Later that night, she found a small room with a bed. On the wall was a photo, a picture of John with another alien girl, older than her, smiling. They stood near a large tree with golden leaves. Was that his daughter? A friend? Another slave he saved? Alira lay on the bed, still unsure. Sleep came slowly, as if her body didn't trust peace. But finally, her eyes closed. She woke up to a soft noise. The ship was quiet, but outside something was moving her. Ears twitched, picking up the sound of footsteps, not human. She jumped out of bed and peeked through the window. Two shadowy figures were walking toward the ship, fast. They had weapons and strange armor. Her breath caught. Bounty hunters. Panic filled her chest. Were they here for her? Did John sell her after all? She turned to run but froze when she saw him at the doorway. He looked at her, then looked outside, without a word. He pulled a small blaster from the wall and handed it to her. "Stay low," he said, then walked out. She stood frozen, her hands holding the weapon tightly. She had never fired one before. Through the window, she saw him step outside and face the hunters. They pointed their guns, shouting something in a strange language. John raised his hands slowly. "I don't want trouble," he said calmly. They didn't listen. The first shot came quick, and John dodged behind a crate. Firing back, the blast lit the ground like lightning. Alira watched as he fought. Not to win, but to protect. He took one down with a clean shot, then pushed the other away from the ship. Leading him into the shadows, she couldn't stay still anymore. Alira ran out, found the second gun, and aimed at the attacker from behind. Her hands were shaking, her heart pounding, but she fired and hit his arm. The hunter screamed and ran off into the trees. It was over for now. She ran to John, who was sitting on the ground, bleeding from his shoulder. "Why did you protect me?" she asked, out of breath. He smiled, even in pain. "Because I said you're free," he whispered. "And I meant it." Alira helped him back into the ship, her hands steady now. She wasn't afraid anymore, just confused. This man had no reason to save her, but he did. She cleaned his wound, and he didn't complain. When she brought him water, he thanked her. When she stayed near him, he smiled. Later, when he was resting, she sat beside the ship's control panel, looking at the stars for the first time. She started to think maybe, just maybe, he was different. Maybe not all humans were monsters. Maybe freedom was real. But her moment of peace didn't last long. A red light blinked on the ship's screen. A message in a coded language appeared. Someone else was tracking them. Not bounty hunters this time, but someone more powerful. The pain was gone, but the questions remained. John lay on the medical bed, his eyes closed, breathing slow and calm. Alira sat in the hallway just outside his room, watching the stars drift by through the window. Each one looked like a promise or a warning. She held the blaster in her lap, the same one he gave her when the bounty hunters came. No one had ever trusted her with a weapon before. No one had ever fought for her, bled for her. Or said she was free, the words still didn't feel real. She stood up and began walking through the ship, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. She passed the control room, the kitchen, the storage unit, all open, all unlocked. If this was a trap, it was the strangest one she'd ever seen. Then she found a room she hadn't noticed before. The door was half open, and inside was something that didn't belong on a warship: books, photos, and a journal. Elira stepped in quietly, her fingers brushing over the small bookshelf. The books were old, full of paper and smells she'd never known. Most were about alien cultures, languages, and survival. But it was the journal on the desk that caught her eye. It was worn and thick, full of handwritten notes in many languages. She flipped through the pages, careful not to tear them. One sentence, written in bold, stopped her breath. "They are not tools, not toys, not property. They are lives." Below it, a list of names. Some crossed out, some with stars beside them, and then her name recently added. Elira. Beside it, nothing yet, just a blank space, waiting to be written. Her hands trembled. John had saved others before her. Maybe she wasn't the first slave he had bought to set free. Maybe this man was on a mission, not for power, but for something else. Redemption. Footsteps came from behind her, and she jumped, turning fast. It was John. Leaning on the doorframe, one hand on his injured shoulder, he looked at her, not angry, just tired. "You found it," he said. "I thought you were asleep." Elira said softly. "Hard to sleep when someone's reading your secrets," he replied. But his voice was calm, almost teasing. "I didn't mean to. I was just—" She stopped, unsure how to explain. He smiled. "It's okay." They stood there for a long moment, just looking at each other. No chains, no orders, no fear, only silence, the kind that listens. Finally, Elira asked the question she had been holding in her heart since the auction. "Why did you buy me?" John looked away, then back at her. "Because I was once in a cage too," he said. "Not a metal one, but a cage of silence and shame. I couldn't save the first ones I found, so now I try to save the next." The words hit her like a soft wind, gentle but strong. Maybe trust didn't come all at once. Maybe it started with stories, with pain shared in whispers instead of screams. Over the next few days, things changed between them. Elira stopped hiding in corners and started asking questions. She wanted to learn about the ship, how it flew, what the buttons did, how to read maps, and John, patient as ever, showed her, step by step, like a teacher with a student. He even let her fly the ship one evening, guiding her hands as she steered through a quiet meteor field. For the first time, she smiled without fear. At night, she sat near the engine room and listened to music John played, old Earth songs. Soft and strange, he told her stories, some funny, some sad. She didn't laugh out loud, not yet, but her eyes were brighter. Then one morning, as she was checking the ship's scanner like John had taught her, something strange appeared. A signal, blinking red, hidden under layers of noise. She pressed a few buttons, trying to clean it. The screen changed, and a voice came through, broken and slow. "Elira, if you can hear this, they're coming. Don't trust." The message cut off. Her blood turned cold. She called for John, and he rushed in, reading the data with sharp eyes. "That was encrypted," he said. "Old tech, very deep. Someone knows you're here, and they want you back. But who?" She asked, her voice low. He looked at her with a heavy gaze. "I don't know," he said. "But it's time we find out." Outside the ship, the stars burned bright. But now Elira knew. Someone in the dark was watching, waiting, and hunting. And she was no longer just a lost slave. She was a target with a secret past, asterisk. She used to be invisible. Just another name on a long list of forgotten slaves. But now, Elira was more than a name. She was a signal in the stars, and someone had just picked it up. John increased the ship's speed, moving through empty sectors like a shadow in the wind. He didn't speak much now, only worked, checking systems, changing routes, scanning signals. Alira watched him closely, copying his movements, learning everything she could. Because deep down, she knew this wasn't just about escape anymore. It was about survival. They couldn't trust anyone, not ports, not traders, not even quiet moons. Someone or something was after her, and they had sent the warning for a reason. But what reason? One night, while the ship floated through a cold and quiet nebula, Alira sat alone, staring at the small signal disk they had recovered from the broken message. She held it tight in her hand, like it would speak if she squeezed hard enough. "Why me?" she whispered. "What are they hunting?" She didn't know yet, but she was ready to find out. The next morning, John brought out 2 bags, tossed one to her, and said, "We're not staying on the ship." "Why?" she asked, surprised. "Because they know this ship now," he said. "We need to change everything. New codes, new ID, new ship." They landed on a trade hub station floating near a dying star. A place full of noise, colors, and danger. A place where no one asked questions. And everyone had secrets. John told Alira to stay close, wear a hood, and speak only if needed. But before they could even blend into the crowd, something happened. A metal sphere the size of a fist flew straight toward them, blinking red. John saw it first and shoved Alira behind a market stall. The sphere exploded in the air, sending a shockwave through the street. People screamed and scattered, but Alira stayed low, her heart pounding like a drum. She saw John on the ground, motionless. "John!" She cried out, running to him, but he opened his eyes slowly, groaning. "I'm okay, go, run." She pulled his arm over her shoulder, refusing to leave him behind. They limped into a side alley, disappearing into the smoke and chaos. Behind them, a shadow moved, tall, armored, and silent. Its eyes glowed red, and its face was hidden behind a black helmet. It scanned the crowd, then followed their trail. Alira and John made it into an abandoned storage unit on the edge of the port. Inside, she helped him sit, his leg burned and bleeding. "I saw it," she said. "That thing, it's hunting us." John nodded, breathing hard. "It's not just a bounty hunter," he said. "It's a tracker genetically programmed." Her hands froze. "Genetically?" He looked at her. "It's tracking you, Alira." She sat back, stunned. "I'm no one," she whispered. "Just a slave." John shook his head. "You were told you're no one. But someone put something inside you, something worth killing." She didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared at the floor, feeling her entire past twist and break. Who had put this code in her? Why her? What was so important? That night, while John rested, Alira opened the ship logs, accessed the DNA scanner, and ran her own file. The results shocked her. Inside her cells was encrypted genetic data, locked by a code no one had cracked. And on top of it, a name, Project Arlith. She didn't understand what it meant, but it was enough to know this wasn't just about freedom anymore. She was part of something bigger. The next day, they left the station using an old escape ship hidden in the hangar. It was slow, loud, and hard to steer, but it was clean. John taught her to fly it while he healed. Each day, she became stronger, sharper, more focused. But the red-eyed hunter wasn't far. He followed their trail like a ghost, always one step behind. Each system they jumped to, he appeared within hours, and Alira started to feel it. The fear, the pressure, the fire, but she didn't run anymore. She trained with John, learned how to shoot, how to decode, how to hide. She became more than a runaway. She became a fighter. Then one day, deep in a black zone outside star maps, the signal tracker went off again, but this time, it wasn't just one hunter, it was 2, and one of them was human. John looked at the screen and went still. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "That man," he said, pointing to the second signal. "I know him." He was my partner once. Alira stared at him, confused. "And now?" John looked at her, his face full of old pain. "Now he's a traitor." Some scars don't bleed. Some stay hidden behind a smile or deep inside old memories. John had many of them. But this one, this face on the screen, brought back a scar that never really healed. The man's name was Commander Raven. Once, he and John had flown together, saved lives together, and bled together. Now, Raven was hunting them, standing beside the red-eyed alien tracker, not just a bounty hunter, a traitor with a badge. And a reason. John stared at the signal screen, his jaw tight, his voice quiet. "He was my brother in battle," he said. "I trusted him more than anyone. What happened?" Elira asked, sitting across from him. He looked away, the stars reflecting in his eyes. "I found out he was selling rescued slaves back into the system. I tried to stop him," he added. "But he was protected, powerful friends." Deep pockets. Elira listened, silent. Now the same man who betrayed his own mission was hunting them. And he knew John, knew how he flew, how he thought, how he hid. That made him dangerous. That made him personal. The next hours were tense. They changed course again, heading to a dead mining station on the edge of a broken asteroid field. It was quiet, dusty, and forgotten. The perfect place to hide or die. Elira walked through the empty halls of the old station, her fingers brushing over rusty walls. This place smelled like the past, lost voices, broken machines, and stories never told. She felt it in her bones, the calm before something bad. Too quiet that night. John gave her a small silver disc. "If I don't make it," he said, "you take this and run." "What is it?" "It unlocks the full data inside your DNA," he said. "Answers and probably danger too." She didn't want it, didn't want to talk about him dying. But she took the disc and hid it in her boot, just in case. The next morning came with fire. It started with a loud crash, then a scream through the comms. Unauthorized ship breach. 2 life forms detected, armed. Elira grabbed her weapon, already running. John was ahead of her, blaster drawn, his limp from the last fight slowing him down. But his aim still perfect. The station lights flickered as the 2 enemies entered. The red-eyed tracker moved like a machine, fast and deadly, and behind him walked Raven, still wearing the same jacket John remembered. Clean, polished fake. "Well," Raven said with a grin, "still trying to save everyone, old friend?" John raised his weapon. "Still selling people like their numbers?" Raven shrugged. "Numbers pay well. Blasters fired." Echoes bouncing through the metal halls. Elira fought beside John, her hands steady, her fear gone. She had trained for this moment, and now it was real. The tracker nearly caught her once, slicing the air beside her neck, but she dodged, rolled, and fired, hitting its leg. Slowing it down, John and Raven clashed in a side corridor, blaster to blaster, voice to voice. "You used to stand for something," John shouted. "I still do." Raven hissed. "I stand for survival." They fought like brothers turned wolves, each strike filled with years of betrayal. But Raven had backup. More men were coming. John turned to Elira. "You have to run now." "No," she said. "Not this time." Instead, she ran to the control room, typing fast. Sweat dripping from her forehead, she rerouted the power, set a trap, and overcharged the fusion core. "John, get out now," she shouted over comms. "What did you do?" "I set the station to blow in 5 minutes," she said. "We take them all down or they take us." The walls shook. Alarms screamed. Raven's face twisted in panic. "This is suicide." He yelled. "No," John replied, dragging Elira toward the docking bay. "This is justice." They reached the escape pod just in time. Elira hit the launch button as the station burst into fire behind them. The blast lit the space around them, a wave of light and dust swallowing the past. Raven's signal disappeared from the screen. Gone. Silence followed, broken only by Elira's quiet breath and the soft hum of the pod. She looked at John, who was bleeding again, but smiling. "You okay?" she asked. "I've been worse," he said, then leaned back. "But you? You were amazing." She didn't reply, just sat beside him, holding the silver disc in her hand. Whatever secrets it held, whatever truth it would reveal, she was ready now, not just to run, but to fight. It didn't feel like winning. They had escaped fire, betrayal, and death. But freedom had a strange silence to it, the kind that sits heavy on your shoulders. Alira stared at the silver disc in her hand, the one John told her to protect with her life. She had no idea what it truly was, only that people were willing to kill for it. John was still recovering in the medical pod, his wounds deeper this time, his sleep heavier. So while he rested, Alira made a choice. No more running, no more hiding. It was time to learn the truth. She walked into the ship's lab, placed the disc into the main console, and pressed the only button glowing red. The screen blinked once, twice, and then lit up with strange symbols, some in alien script, others in ancient human code. A soft female voice came from the speakers. "Welcome, Subject Auralith 9, Alira's breath caught. Subject, not citizen, not person, subject. What is Project Auralith?" she asked, her voice shaking. The voice replied calmly, "Auralith is a cross-species memory storage program, designed to encode ancient knowledge inside living cells." Alira's mind spun. "You mean I carry information?" "Correct." The voice said, "You hold the memory of civilizations that no longer exist." She stepped back from the screen, her hands cold. She had thought she was just a girl who got lucky, saved from slavery, given a second chance. But she wasn't just a girl. She was a vault on the screen. An image appeared, a map of the galaxy, with glowing points marked across it. "These are the memory keys," the voice continued. "There are 9 like you." Alira stared at the names, most of them grayed out. Only one remained active. Her. "What happened to the others?" she asked quietly. The voice paused, terminated. A chill ran down her spine. Someone, or something, had hunted down all the others. And now she was the last. The disc wasn't just a key, it was a beacon. And every time it was activated, someone got closer to her. She turned to shut it down, but it was too late. A signal had already been sent. John woke up to alarms. The ship shaking under sudden pressure. Hostile signature detected. 2 enemy ships incoming. The computer warned. Alira ran to him. "I opened the file. I didn't know it would ping them." He didn't blame her. Just sat up and grabbed the flight controls. "You did the right thing," he said. "Now we finish this." They jumped into hyperspace, engines roaring, leaving a trail of sparks behind. But the enemy followed, faster than expected, stronger than before. On the screen appeared a new face, one Alira had never seen. An alien, tall and thin, with skin like silver stone and glowing yellow eyes. "You are the last," he said, voice cold and sharp. "The last lock before we open the gate." "What gate?" Alira asked, but he didn't answer. He just smiled, cruel and slow. "You are not a person. You are a key, and keys are not meant to live." The signal cut, and the ships began to fire. John moved the ship fast, dodging, spinning, twisting through meteors, but they couldn't outrun them forever. That's when Alira made another choice, a bigger one. "I'll give them what they want," she said. "I'll surrender." "No," John shouted. "That's exactly what they expect." "I won't die hiding," she said, eyes steady. "If I really hold something powerful, then maybe I can use it." She ran back to the lab, inserted the disc again, and pressed a deeper code, something locked until now. Pain shot through her body, light filled her eyes, and a rush of voices poured into her mind. Thousands of voices, memories, emotions, cities built from stardust. Species born and gone, all living inside her now. She screamed, fell to her knees. But she didn't let go. When it was over, she stood up, changed. Not in body, but in purpose. She wasn't just Alira, the slave, or Alira, the rescued. She was Alira, the last memory of a lost universe, and she was ready to protect it. The ship's power suddenly surged. Systems rebooted. Weapons charged beyond normal levels. John looked at the console in shock. "What did you just do?" Illyra walked in, glowing faintly, eyes burning with light. "I woke up," she said simply. Outside, the enemy ships closed in. But this time, they weren't hunting a girl. They were facing a force older than time. Some choices break you, others shape you. But the rarest kind, the ones that define you, ask for everything you have, and give you only one thing in return: truth. Illyra stood at the center of the control room, her skin glowing faintly with ancient energy. Her breath came slow and steady, but her heart thundered like a war drum. Outside the ship, two massive enemy vessels hovered like giants in the sky, waiting, ready to strike. They didn't want her alive. They wanted what was inside her. The memories, the knowledge, the key. John stood beside her, injured but ready, holding his weapon. "This is your call now," he said. "Not mine. You're not just cargo. Not just power. You're a person, and this is your fight." She didn't speak. Not yet. Inside her, thousands of voices stirred. Old kings, lost soldiers, forgotten scientists, entire civilizations that had died, but still lived inside her. They weren't screaming. They were watching, waiting to see what she would do. The ship shook. Another warning, another countdown. The enemy had locked weapons. Time was almost gone. John looked at her. "We can try to run again," he said. She turned to him slowly, her voice calm. "No, if I run now, I'm just a scared girl again," she said. "But if I stay, I become something more." She walked to the ship's core, a glowing blue chamber now pulsing with the energy she had awakened. She touched the control panel, her fingers lighting it up like fire through ice. A hologram appeared, the gate. Not a door, but a portal built by a forgotten race, hidden beyond a collapsing star. The memories in her DNA were the last missing piece needed to open it. But no one knew what waited on the other side. Treasure, power, destruction, rebirth. The enemy believed it was a weapon, a way to control galaxies. But Illyra felt something else. Hope. A signal lit up the screen. It was the alien commander again. The one with stone skin and yellow eyes. "You don't know what you carry," he said. "But we do. Give it to us, and we will let your human live." John turned to Illyra, his eyes full of pain. "Don't believe them." But she was already moving. She opened the combs, stared into the eyes of the one who hunted her, and said, "You want the gate? Then come get it." And then she launched the ship straight at the enemy. John shouted, "What are you doing?" She turned to him, smiling for the first time in days. "I'm ending this." They broke through the enemy's shields, dodging fire, pushing the old ship harder than ever before. Illyra connected herself to the memory core, letting it guide the ship through the stars. The coordinates burned into her mind. A place beyond mapped space, beyond time. The gate appeared like a massive ring floating in the dark, spinning slow, glowing gold and black. The enemy ships chased them through, unaware they were crossing into something far bigger than them. As they entered the center of the gate, everything changed. Inside was a storm of light, a memory storm. It didn't destroy, it revealed. One of the enemy ships broke apart instantly, its systems crushed by the truth it couldn't handle. The other turned back, retreating, leaving only Illyra and John in the eye of the storm. And there, in the center, was the final code, a question only she could answer. To open the future, what must be sacrificed? Illyra looked at John, then at her hands, glowing with all the knowledge she held. If she gave it up, the gate would open, and the wisdom of lost worlds would be free. But she would vanish. Her body couldn't hold that much energy forever. She had to choose, save herself, or save everything else. John grabbed her hand. "You don't have to do this." "I know," she whispered, "but I want to, because for the first time, I'm choosing it." She stepped into the light, and the ship around her faded. John shouted her name, but she was already gone, not in pain, not in fear, but in purpose. The gate opened wide, and knowledge flooded into the universe. New stars were born that day. Old ones flickered back to life, and far away, on quiet worlds, The forgotten began to remember who they were. John drifted in the ship. Alone now, but not lost, he looked at the stars, tears in his eyes, and whispered, "She saved more than herself. She saved what we could be." And somewhere, in the memory of the stars, a girl named Alira lived on, not as a slave, not as a weapon, but as the last light of hope